Hey guys, it's Miss Wills.
Miss Anderson.
We are here to do a review for you for your Ancient Israel Study Guide. So we're going to jump right in and get started. Hopefully you have the paper that Miss Anderson is holding up. It's the Ancient Israel Study Guide that we gave you last week. Yeah, so you've had a little bit of time to be working on it. So
Friday.
Yeah, the weekend. If you procrastinated, in other words, put it off to the last minute to do, it's going to take you some time now to do it. So, but anyways, that was your choice, right?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so here we go.
I can start off with number one.
Sure.
Okay, number one, it says, what is the Tanakh? Remember we watched a little video where there was a little rabbi and he was at a synagogue and he was talking to you about the Tanakh. And when he ended it, it sounded like he was making a little, a little funny sound in his throat there, like he was going to. Okay, Tanakh, right?
Yeah.
So we know that this is broken into three parts. The first part, the TA, stands for the Torah. And it is about the law. Some people say it's about the teachings. Teachings, the law, but actually the Torah directly translates in Hebrew to the law. But it is about the teachings. It's the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible was the books that was given to Moses on Mount Sinai. And then the next one is the NA stands for Nevi'im. And I had you guys say that a few times in class. And so anyway, that one is the books about the prophets. And we know that prophets were people who spoke for God they were also called in the ancient days seers because they made predictions that would come true and come to pass years down the road, sometimes hundreds of years down the road, which is pretty interesting. And then the last one is the Ketuvim, not ketchup or ketchup beam.
No.
Ketuvim. And it's the writings. So a lot of it is history, historical, like the Kings and Proverbs and Psalms and all those things. That would go in the Ketuvim. So that's how you break down the Hebrew Bible. And together they call it the Tanakh.
So there you go.
There you go.
We did this together in class. So you should have this in your notebook. All right, the second one on your Ancient Israel Study Guide is what are the 10 Commandments and what legacy did they leave? All right, we talked about the 10 Commandments a lot in class. It's on the same worksheet that Miss Anderson and I were just showing you, only it is right here on the back, and it says the 10 Commandments that are on here. And it talks about what they were, who received them from God, how they were written, what happened with the first set of the 10 Commandments, and the people while they were waiting for Moses to come down off Mount Sinai. And so it also, I'm glad I wasn't one of them.
Me too. They got in a lot of trouble.
They did get in a lot of trouble. Drinking a golden cow. It is weird. It's gross. I don't want to drink my jewelry. Okay, and what legacy did they leave? Okay, so we also talked about how the 10 Commandments are the basis for many laws for a lot of other nations and countries around the world.
They are. Even ours.
Yep. Ours is a prime example of the 10 Commandments being the basis of our nation's laws.
Yep.
All right, so that was on the worksheet that Ms. Anderson was just telling you about that has the Tanakh, or the should I say it?
Tanakh.
Yeah, there you go. She did very well. All right, so moving right along.
What's the third one? Who was Abraham and what did God promise him? So that is going to be on your the development of the ancient Hebrews or Israelites packet. There's a whole bunch of stuff about Abraham on there. His name wasn't Abraham to start with, it was Abram. And God changes his name later on, tells him he's going to make of him a great nation. And he leads him out of this is actually, you need to know this, he leads him out of a place in Mesopotamia called Ur. Not not Burr, but Ur. U-R. Leads him out of there.
What?
Ur.
What? You are what? What are you?
Human. A person. Happy. Okay. Confused.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, so he leads him out of Mesopotamia in the city-state of Ur, and he tells him, go to the land that I will show you. And so he does, and he had to trust God at this point, right? So he leads him out of this land, and he travels to a land called Canaan.
And there was wasn't there something different about about Abraham in in
Yes, Abraham was a little bit different than everybody else. He believed there was only one God, when the people of believed there was a bunch of them. They were polytheistic.
thousands, right?
Yeah, and Abraham was monotheistic.
So you
Hopefully we
better
know those.
know the difference between those two words, monotheistic, polytheistic. Because I've said those words in class some days.
Bunches of times. Poly means many. Mono means one.
Some of you still don't have that right, though. I don't know why.
Well, we'll get it this time. We'll get it.
Good positive thinking, Miss Anderson.
You know, that's what I'm good for.
She's good for that. Okay. All right. Keep on tracking, Miss Anderson.
Okay, and so Abraham, he does this, and he gets to Canaan. As soon as he gets there, his God tells him, which is Yahweh, it says it in here. Kaboom. He says, look around you, Abraham. I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, hey, look around. Everywhere that your eyes behold and everything that you see to the east, to the west, and south, and north. He said, all of that land is going to be given to you and your descendants after you, and I'm going to give you so many grandchildren that's going to number that you couldn't even count as many stars as how many grandkids you're going to
There
have.
are a lot of stars in the sky.
Yeah.
He couldn't count them.
Mm-mm.
I can't count them.
Nope.
Can you count them?
I've tried before.
I don't think Mr. Graham can count them
I
either.
lost count.
Well, it's kind of easy.
Yeah.
I mean, you're counting and you go 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait,
Sometimes I
there's
fall
a new one.
asleep like
1, 2,
that.
3,
I just
4.
can't count
Oh, I
and
mean,
fall asleep.
wait, that's a big start. Did I count? I don't know. I get lost.
Yeah, me too. So that's what he told Abraham. And so Abraham, he had to believe him. And then later on, he ends up having a son, and he's like super duper old, right? Because he didn't have a kid. God promised him he would make of him a great nation. He didn't have any kids. His wife she was pretty old. She didn't think she was going to have any kids. And guess what happened? So they said she was going to have kids. So according to the Tanakh, some angels visited them, and they said, hey, you're going to have a kid. And she was chuckling about it inside. She was laughing about it. And she came outside.
I'm an old woman.
And
I can't be
they said,
kids.
Sarah, why'd you laugh? She's like, I didn't laugh. He's like, oh, yeah, you did laugh.
did laugh.
So anyway, when Isaac,
She
her
laughed.
child, her son, was born, she named him Isaac, which translates into Hebrew as laughter. Pretty cool. Pretty funny.
It is kind of funny. And forever she had to holler at him when he was outside, and she'd go, hey, Isaac, where are you? And actually she was going, hey, laughter, where are you? So every time when she hollered for him,
Yeah.
you know, because hollered's a southern word.
Hollered.
Hollered, in the holler. When she hollered for him, she had to be reminded every time she said his name that she had laughed when God told her she was going to have a child.
That's right. She did.
But she was old.
She was old.
I mean, can
Like-
you imagine chasing
like
a
she was
kid around
90.
that old?
I think I'd be on a walker at 90.
I can't even chase y'all around the room,
Sheesh.
and I'm not that old.
I don't know.
Don't
I hope
let
I'm
what-
not on a walker at 90.
Don't let
I'm
what
running.
Miss Lehman says about me. I'm not that old. Miss Lehman is older than me. Did I say that out loud? Okay. Let's,
Write that
let's
on your
go.
epitaph.
Let's go on to the next one.
Okay.
Where are we?
I don't know. We lost track.
Oh, wait.
Number 4.
Yes, that's where we are. According to the Tanakh, what did God change Jacob's name to? All right. Is that? Oh, here it is, Miss Anderson.
It's also in that same
So
document.
keep on tracking, Miss Anderson.
You want me to keep tracking?
Sure, keep going.
All right. So according to the Tanakh,
So on page 2 of this packet.
there's a story in there about on his way, Jacob and Esau, they kind of got in a little argument. Jacob tricked Esau into selling his birthright, and Jacob had to live somewhere else for a while. He married a couple women and had a whole bunch of kids. And he was ready to move back to Canaan because, according to the Tanakh, his God told him to. So he moved back to Canaan. On his way there, he's really worried about his brother Esau, because he was mad. He threatened to kill him before. That's why he left.
Yeah, Esau was the one that was a big hunter. He was pretty. I envision him as being a big brute.
probably was a big
don't you?
brute.
I think he was, and he was hairy.
Yeah, and he didn't smell too good.
No, he stunk.
Right.
There's no telling when he took a bath.
He's probably covered in guts and gore and blood of animals that he killed all day long. But anyway, so Esau was, Jacob was worried about Esau, so he sent his family on. He's like, you guys go hide. I'm going to stay here tonight in the field, in this empty field, and you guys are going to go hide. So while Jacob's camping out in the field, he's got a little campfire going on. Some guy walks up to him. He's already a nervous wreck, thinking
Yeah.
Esau's going to come and, sock it to him. And so Jacob starts wrestling this
You
guy.
know what? Sock it to
Sock
him.
it, like sock it to him.
Oh, sock it to. I got
Like a
it.
sock, not on your foot, but like a.
Oh, Oh,
like a
Okay.
punch.
keep going.
Anyway, so he thought he was gonna suck it to him, and so Jacob, he starts fighting this stranger. You don't even know who this stranger is, but he's, they're brawling, and the sun starts to come up. Day is breaking, and this guy's like, okay, this is enough. And so it turns out that this guy's an angel, and he touches Jacob's hip and knocks his hip out of socket, but Jacob doesn't let go. He hangs on to this guy. And Jacob figures out at that point that he's actually wrestling an angel. And he says, I'm not letting you go until you bless me. And guess what the angel did? He blessed him. He said, you know what? I'm going to change your name. You're no longer going to be called Jacob. You're going to be called Israel because you have wrestled with God and won.
And that is right here where it talks about Jacob returns to Canaan. And it tells you exactly what she just said. Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but you shall now be called Israel because you have power with God and with men.
Yeah, power with God and
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry for the interruption there.
Yeah.
We did. Did you tell them about stealing the birthright?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's videos about it. We watched a little
We
video.
did. We did. That little video was so stinking cute.
Jacob, just to backtrack a little bit, what she's talking about, Jacob was cooking up some stew one day, and Esau had been hunting out in the woods all day, and he shows up, and he's starving.
He says he's starving.
He's like, would you feed me? Would you give me some of that soup? And Jacob said, why don't you give me your birthright, and I'll give you some soup. And so Esau really didn't care about his birthright, so he was like, sure, you can have my birthright for the soup. So
And we talked about in class how historians aren't really sure why he did that. Because that birthright, that was pretty important.
Maybe he would just rather stay in the woods all day instead of taking over his father's flock and being responsible and having to run the household and all those things.
But then, when he tricked his dad because his dad was blind, and he went in to get the blessing from his father, and the only way that his father knew the difference between he and his brother was Esau was hairy.
Yeah.
So his mother, actually, because Esau was his dad's favorite, but Jacob was his mother's favorite.
Yeah.
And so he told his mom, she said, well, we need to put hair on your arms so that when your father touches you, he'll think you're
Wool
Esau.
from a lamb.
Yep.
And wrapped his arms.
And so he goes, but Mom, if I do that, God might get really mad at me. And I really don't want him mad at me. I wouldn't want him mad at me either. So you know what his mom did? His mom said, I'll do it. And if you get cursed, it won't be you, it'll be me. So his mom put the fur on his arms, and when his dad reached up from his deathbed and he felt him, he felt all that fur, and he thought it was Esau. I just want to know whose arms are that hairy, though.
I don't know. That sounds awful. You don't shave
You
your
know
arms or
what?
it'll grow back thick like Esau's.
He went through a lot of razors in his lifetime.
I know they had razors back then.
Well, they might not have. But,
Maybe they did. Anyway, what number are we
That's
on?
it. Okay, we are on number 5. Who had 12 sons, and what did these 12 sons become known as? All right, is it still in the same packet, Miss Anderson?
Probably. Oh, yeah. Still same packet. Tells this whole story. So, Jacob has 12 sons. Remember, he had a whole slew of kids. And they were all boys. There was a girl in there somewhere, but she's not really mentioned that much. But anyway, so he had 12 sons, and these sons became known as the 12 tribes of Israel. They're also referred to the house of Jacob.
Oh,
The children of Israel.
right there. Jacob's 12 sons. I knew it was in here somewhere.
And they become the 12 tribes. Bunch of them.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute. All right. Number 6 is describe Moses and his life. Okay, it's still in the same packet. So right here is Moses in Egypt.
Yep.
And if you remember, okay, so 6 and 7, I guess we could kind of combine those together, couldn't we?
Sure.
So 6 is describe Moses in his life. Moses is the one that his mother made the basket and put him in the Nile River.
Yep.
And she made it out of bulrushes or reed.
Reeds.
That's what it'd be, reed. And I'm pretty sure that she lined it with tar so that it wouldn't sink. And she
Yep.
puts this little bitty baby in the Nile River. Do you know why she put him in there?
Why did she put him in there?
Because there had been a decree to kill all the male children.
That's right. You know why?
Tell him.
Because they'd been there since Jacob. Joshua, and they'd been there for like 400 years, and there were so many of them, and this Pharaoh was getting scared that they would eventually revolt and take over. So it's like
400 years
no
later.
more male babies, kill them all.
Right. So while they were there, those 400 years later, you know, when they first went to Egypt, you knew they were welcomed, right?
Yeah, they were.
They were welcomed, and they moved there because there was a famine in their land, and they had to have food. So they went to Egypt, and the Pharaoh that was in charge then said, "Yeah, come on in. We've got plenty of food. Whatever, just move in." But the problem is they stayed, and the Pharaoh, which wasn't the same Pharaoh whenever they first came in. Remember, 400 years later, it's a
People forget
different
stuff in
Pharaoh.
400 years.
Right. Then they started becoming very numerous, and the Pharaoh that was in charge then was so afraid that they were going to outnumber the Egyptians that he decided he better take care of that before they overthrew him.
Yeah.
So they put him into slavery. At the same time, he makes the decree that all the male children are to be killed. So his mom, Moses' mom, decides she's going to put him in a basket and put him in the Nile River. She did that to try to save his life, which she did. But can you imagine if you're a mother putting your infant baby in a basket in the river?
No, I'd be scared.
It would be very scary because you know what? There's all kinds of creatures in that river.
Crocodiles.
Believe it or not, a hippopotamus will eat you alive too. Did you know that?
Hippopotamus.
They're mean. But there's all snakes, fish, crocodiles, everything. But
I don't
she
want a
still
hippopotamus for
puts him in
Christmas.
that basket because. Did you say you did not want a hippopotamus? I don't either.
Okay.
Okay. We're gonna keep going. Where was I? Basket.
Yeah, Moses.
Let's move on from the hippos.
So Pharaoh's daughter finds him floating along. She picks him up and says,
Thank you.
Look, here,
She did. She saw this little basket out in the bulrushes, and she told her maidservants to go out and get it. She goes and gets it, and it's just a little bitty baby laying in there. So she raises him as her own son. Now, she also had a son of her own, but she raises Moses not as an Israelite, but as an Egyptian. And so he grows up in the Pharaoh's kingdom, home, palace, whatever you want to call it. So he sees one day, don't you think that Moses kind of always maybe knew something was different?
I'd say he did.
I think he did too.
I think.
Yeah, I think so. So he sees one day this Egyptian soldier, and he's beating an Israelite. He had done something while they were out working, and Moses saw it, and he just couldn't take it. So he says to that Egyptian guard, he's like, "Hey, come around here for a minute. I need to talk to you about something."
And he smote him. And smote means attack. Hacha.
She's very animated today. Yes, he did. He killed him. And he buried him in the sand. And he got really nervous that somebody might have seen him. And he was right. Somebody did see him, another Egyptian. And the word got back to the Pharaoh that he had done this. And so the Pharaoh sends out a message to get Moses. Do you know where Moses ran?
He ran to Midian, which is Saudi Arabia today.
And he actually didn't just go there for a day or two or a week or a month.
No, a long time.
He was there for several years.
Like 10 years.
While he was there, he actually got married.
And had 2 sons.
He did.
That's right.
And he got called by God to go back to free his people while he was there. Do you know how God talked to him?
Wasn't it something on fire? It was a burning bush.
It was a burning bush. And the bush really wasn't on fire, though, Miss
No, it
Anderson.
never burned up, did it?
It didn't.
It talked to him.
I would be.
Said, Moses, take off your shoes. You're on holy ground.
That's right. And he did. If I had a burning bush talk to me, I'd be like, whoa.
I might have a heart attack.
I might. But anyways, he talks to him through this burning bush, and he says, Moses, go back and free your people. And did he go?
He said, I'm not good at talking. I stutter. I'm really bad at this. I'm not a man of many words.
Yep.
But
Historians
then,
believe that he stuttered, and that's one of the reasons he didn't want to go back. Because if you stutter, especially in the ancient world, if you had any type of sort of like a disability like that, then they didn't take you seriously when you went back to speak to them. So he didn't want to go talk to the Pharaoh or go before the Pharaoh's court because he stuttered.
Yeah.
So he finally tells him to go. So Moses goes back to the Pharaoh's court, and he says, "Let my people go." And the Pharaoh said, "Oh, yeah,
Nope.
sure." Oh, he said no? Oh, okay.
He said, I don't think so, Moses.
Well, what?
because he needed them to work and to build stuff. They were slaves. If he let all those 400 people go, he wouldn't have people to build all of his big building projects.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
So then God did something. He sent stuff.
We watched a video on it.
He sent.
Miss Anderson had put a really cute video. Well, it was cute, but it was kind of, ooh. It was one of those videos where it makes you go, you know, I can stand one frog,
Yeah.
but I don't want frogs jumping in my hair and
Yeah.
in my bed at night when I go to
No.
sleep or hopping on my food or
Big old heaps of them.
and
I think
gnats
they're cute.
and dead animals laying around.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're cute if there's only one of them, but
And then all the
hundreds?
frogs started to die.
Remember, we talked about if you went to sleep at night and you were a mouth breather, that could be really bad news for you. Mm-hmm. So he sent the plagues. Remember how many plagues there were?
Yeah, there was like 10 of them. Mm-hmm. There was a bunch of them.
There
First, there was blood in the water, then there was frogs, and there was maggots, right? And then there was gnats and flies,
Ugh.
lice.
Oh, yeah.
And then the animals started dying, and people started getting big boils on their
Oh,
skin.
the boils.
All of this time, Moses, every one of them, every time there was a new plague, he'd say, "Hey, you gonna let the people go?" And the Pharaoh would say, "No." And then, so he would go back and he'd ask him again, and then finally, the 10th plague came along.
That
and
was
it was
the
the
ultimate.
worst.
That
It was worse than
was
all of them.
that was death. That was that the angel of death came through and killed all the firstborn sons or the sons.
But the Hebrews or the Jewish people still celebrate this. It's called the Passover. So that 10th plague, they were supposed to, there's a whole story on it. They're supposed to take their nicest, neatest, prettiest, most specialist lamb, and then they would kill it. And they would take the blood of that lamb and they would put it over the doorknobs and over the top, or not the doorknobs, but the
door
doorposts
facings, yeah.
and the tops. And then they would cook up the rest of it and they would eat it with their shoes on and their staff in hand. And they still do that today.
And if that blood wasn't over your door, then your child was going to die that
Your firstborn.
night. Your firstborn son was going to die that night. So the Pharaoh happened to have a firstborn son.
And he died.
He did. So I can just envision Moses going in that time and asking the Pharaoh, "Hey, you ready to let my people go?" And the Pharaoh's standing there holding his
Get out.
firstborn son. So not only did he say yes, but he did. He said,
Get out.
Get out.
Get out. Take this. Take that. And they gave them gold. They gave them blankets. They gave them food.
they packed up all their stuff.
Yeah.
They started a caravan. We've talked about a caravan. We talked about it in the library that day when we were talking about Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
So they got all their stuff packed up on their donkeys, their camels. They took all their animals, everything, and out they went. And then the Pharaoh was done with them, right?
Well, for a little while, but then he's like, nah, I'm going to go get
It
them.
wasn't too long. He was really mad.
So he sent his chariots and his armies speedily after them.
Yep. And they
And
made
then-
their way to the Red Sea, where they stayed that night. And then a pillar of fire protected them at night, and then a cloud protected
cloud.
them during the day, which one of the videos told us looked kind of like a tornado. Do you remember that? And it protected the Israelites from the Egyptians. So God tells Moses to walk down with his staff and to tell the Red Sea to part, and the Red Sea, Moses takes the staff, sticks it in the Red Sea parts. And in addition to that itself being miraculous, is they go across on dry land. So the land dried that quick for them to get across because they had wagons, things hooked to their donkeys. They had donkeys.
And young people and old
You know,
people.
you start to go across something that's muddy with a wagon, you're going to get marred down.
Get stuck.
So that land was dry. So they get across, and when they are all getting across, they see the Pharaoh's army coming after them. And so they enter in between the water, and they start across the Red Sea too. And I can just envision that last person, that last Israelite stepping out of the water, and all the Egyptian soldiers are in the water, and guess what happened? It all crashes in on him. And the Pharaoh stood back on a hillside, and he watched his whole entire army, horses, chariots, soldiers, everything,
all.
gone.
The bluey.
Yep, they were gone. So question number 6 said, describe Moses in his life. What did he contribute to the Israelite society? Well, he's responsible for getting the Israelites freed from the Egyptians.
The Exodus.
Yes, and the book of the Bible, Genesis,
The Exodus.
is the story about Moses.
The entire thing.
Moses also, when he got his people out of slavery and they crossed the Red Sea, then they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, where the people were people and they complained.
A lot.
Yeah, about not having food and not having water. And Moses
They
talked
even
to
at one time
God.
wanted to go back and be slaves again.
Yeah. How crazy is that?
I don't know.
So God supplied them with manna from heaven. He supplied them with water from rocks. In the middle of all this, Moses goes to the top of Mount Sinai to receive the 10 Commandments from God.
He was up there a long time.
He was so long that when he came back down, they actually didn't even recognize him.
Yeah.
Because his hair was completely white. He just didn't even look like himself. And he goes up there to get the 10 Commandments. When he comes back down, guess what they're doing?
They're celebrating around a golden calf.
Yep.
They'd melted down all
They've
their
taken their jewelry, rings, metal of any type. They've melted it down and made a golden cow, and they're worshiping. And so what did Moses do?
He threw the tablets.
He threw the tablets down and crushed them into 1,000 pieces. And then
He had to go get them again.
the people paid for their actions too.
Yeah.
Because he said, you wanna worship a golden cow? Then
The cow didn't get you out of Egypt.
that's right. We're going to grind that thing up. We're going to pour it in the water, and you're going to drink it. So, yeah. So he did that. Then he goes back up to the mountain. This time they behaved themselves while he was gone.
Yeah.
When he
Yeah.
came back down, there was no more melting
Totally
golden.
chill.
So he comes back down with the 10 Commandments again. And I pointed out to my class, and Miss Anderson probably did too. Do you remember what the first commandment was? Thou shalt worship.
No other gods before me.
And what were they doing the first time that he came down with those tablets?
Worshipping other gods.
Yep. So guess what the first one is now? You don't worship anybody else, not even a cow made of jewelry. So Moses is responsible for the 10 Commandments.
And the second one was make unto yourselves no graven images. They did that.
They did that.
1 and 2.
So Moses got the 10 Commandments. The burning bush was Moses. Freeing the Israelite slaves from Egypt was Moses. Moses also did not get to go into Canaan. So we talked about that, how he saw Canaan, but he didn't get to enter in. And he didn't because God told him to go up and talk to a rock and it would bring forth water. Well, he did talk to the rock, but he also struck it with his staff.
He smote it.
And yes, he did smote it.
I like the word.
And I can tell. So after he did this, God said, oh, because you did that, you will not be able to enter into Canaan.
Yep.
So he died outside of Canaan. And one of the neatest things, though, well, there's a lot of neat things. So I can't say the neatest because there are so
There's
many.
a bunch of neat stuff.
But the fact that God buried Moses where no one will ever find him.
Nobody.
That is just so cool to me.
That's what it says in the Tanakh.
I know. It's
Yeah.
cool. All right, so 6 and 7. That is a whole lot of information right there
Lots
about
of stuff.
Moses and his life and what he did and the contributions he made to the history of Israel. So, you ready?
Recap. Baby in a basket. Raised by the Pharaoh's daughter. Led the Israelites.
Race is an Egyptian.
Raised as an Egyptian. Killed an Egyptian guard. Talked to a burning bush. God sent him back to free the Israelites in the Exodus, that entire thing. Led the Israelites 40 years in the desert. Received the 10 Commandments and the Torah from God. Received the 10 Commandments from God on Mount Sinai and led them to the Promised Land, but didn't get to enter in. There you go.
There you go. All right, Miss Anderson, we are on
Number 8.
number 8.
Describe the religion of the Israelites and what is their religion known as. So their religion, they are monotheistic. They believe in one God, and their God is named Yahweh. It says it in that packet there, and Yahweh translates from Hebrew into I am in English. That's what it means. And so anyway, this is who they worship. They believe that there are no other gods above him, that he is the creator of all the things that have ever been made or created, the universe and the earth and all that is therein, is what it says. And so, anyway, they believe that, and this, their religion that is based off of the religious practices of Judah, we'll talk about later on, is called Judaism. And it all started with Abraham.
All right, number 9 said, what city did King David name his capital city? All right, we talked about that on one of the worksheets that we did just the other day.
King
And
David.
it's actually called King David, the greatest king. And there are some questions at the bottom of the paper. Okay. So what city did King David name his capital city?
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. All right. So, let's see. Is that, well, basically that's all that one says.
Yeah.
So, is there anywhere in here, Miss Anderson, that's another number that goes with how King David became king?
I don't think so. I don't see nothing.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you really. I hang on.
Our battery's running
Our
low.
battery is running low. Hang on. Okay, we got the battery.
Battery.
As Miss Anderson's papa says it. Battery. We got the battery plugged in. So I was telling you about how David became king. So just really quickly. So, Judge Samuel, the people were complaining because we talked about them complaining just a minute ago. The people were complaining that they didn't have a king, and Samuel, the prophet and judge, said, "You do have a king. God's your king." They said, "Well, we want a king like everybody around us, where they have kings and monarchies." And he said, "If you get a king like everybody around you, you're not going to be a theocracy anymore. You're going to be a monarchy. And I really don't think that you want a king, because what that king's going to do is he's going to charge you high taxes.
Yep.
And then he's going to turn around, if you can't pay, he's going to enslave you." So, but they still keep whining, because they whined. I don't know.
Just how they were.
I mean, that's how humans are. Don't we all whine? We all whine about stuff. Just face
we
it.
teach 6th graders.
Maybe that's why we think everybody whines.
Maybe.
Oh, sorry. I was going
love you
somewhere
guys.
else. We do.
we
If we
do.
didn't love you, we wouldn't be doing this. Okay. So leave me alone. All right. So, so Samuel tells them, "You really don't want a king." They, yeah. We want a king. So God tells him to appoint a king. He appoints King Saul. King Saul is king for quite a while, and then he.
Make some bad decisions. Does some things that he shouldn't do.
That's true.
And God told him to do a certain thing, and he did something opposite of that, and God wasn't happy with it. So
he tells Samuel to appoint another king. Now, there's a little problem there, because when he appointed that next king, Saul was still king.
Yep.
And Saul was okay with it to begin with, because that was just going to be a successor, which means the next king that comes along. Until they went to battle with
The Philistines.
who had somebody named,
A giant, big guy named Goliath.
not the Jolly Green.
No. This guy was a mean guy. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to take all you guys and put you in slavery."
Yeah. So guess who killed Goliath?
Little David.
Little David. And little David was chosen because Samuel went to his dad Jesse and said, "One of your boys is supposed to be the next king. So I need you to bring all your sons before me, because when they come before me, I'm going to know who it is." So he brings all of his sons. He's like, no. What about, no, not that one. Oh, here's the third one. Maybe, no.
Nope. There was like 8 of them.
We're at number 5. Oh, this could be it, Miss Anderson.
Nope,
Was it?
wasn't him.
Nope, not him. So he said, "Do you not have any more sons?"
He said, "Yeah, I got one out here in the field. He keeps my sheep."
He's a little scrawny guy.
Yep. So it's like, bring him in here. So as soon as Samuel,
Yeah.
he laid eyes on David, he's like, "Yeah, that's the guy."
That's the one.
So he anoints him. And all that good spirit that was with Saul left Saul and went to
And
David.
went to David. So David ends up going to battle. He becomes the commander of the army. He goes into battle. Goliath's out there, and he goes like, "Yo, dude, I'll take you anywhere, y'all. Who wants to come fight me?" And all the Israelites were like, "We're not messing with this guy."
Yeah.
And David goes forward and goes, "I'll kill him." And they were all like, "Have you lost your mind?
And
You're a
he's-
little pipsqueak."
went to Saul and he's like, "Saul, I'm going to fight David. Or I'm going to fight Goliath." And he was like, at this point, "You know what, David? I don't care. Go give it your best shot. Take my armor."
Wear it out.
David puts it on. It's too big because he's just a little
Can't wear
guy.
it.
You know,
You
at the
can't
top.
carry it.
So he couldn't wear his armor. So he's like, you know what? I'm just going to take my sling. So he goes and finds himself 5 smooth stones out of the creek, and he puts them in his pocket, and he gets out there, and that Goliath, he's all talking smack. He's like,
Yeah.
"I'm going to feed your brains to the birds." And guess what? David took out his sling, and where we paused it on.
We were.
Okay. I hope so. Anyway, he takes out his sling and he does a little thing with his sling, and he sends that rock a sailing, and it plants right there as the story goes. It knocks the Goliath right down. Gives him a concussion, probably.
Yeah, well, historians actually think that the rock kind of embedded in his skull.
Yeah. And then David
That's a
goes
hard
over
hit.
and grabs this giant sword and kablooey. He smote him
And there's her favorite word of the unit.
of this unit.
Smote.
There'll be more.
So anyways, ends up that David comes home and everybody's like, "Woo, David!
They're all lifting him up like
Woohoo!
Rudy.
You awesome! You
Yeah.
killed Goliath." And so Saul gets mad because of one little word that will describe it: jealousy.
Yeah.
He was so jealous of David. So, make a long story short, Saul ends up going to battle.
With the Philistines.
Yep. And he tried to kill David. That's kind of big.
For a long time.
He
Chased him all over
did.
the countryside.
And actually, Saul and Saul's son,
Jonathan,
was best friends with David. And he kind of gave him a hint. He was like, my dad wants to kill you. And so David left because he didn't know what was going to happen. So he fled. And he chased him for a long time. And while he was kind of like had his attention on David, trying to find him to kill him, it took his attention off the kingdom. And we've talked about that anytime in the ancient world, if you have discourse in your kingdom or your king is not doing his job, then there's a weakness there. And other countries are always out watching to see when you're weak, because that's the time that they're going to attack.
That's exactly right.
And so the Philistines attacked. So Saul came back in, got in on the battle. He actually knew that he was defeated, was going to be killed. So instead of letting the Philistines kill him,
He fell on his sword.
he killed himself. So,
On purpose.
yeah.
Fell on his sword on purpose.
Ooh, this is just gross.
Yep.
All right. Number 10 is a map question.
What is the location of Canaan? You will get this question.
Promise.
You also need to know where the Red Sea is.
This is
the
a
Dead
really
Sea.
crummy map, but your map looks better. But
Yeah.
this is it. It says Ancient Israel Map at the top. It has everything that Miss Anderson's telling you on there.
You gotta know all this stuff. You gotta be able to find it. So please study this and make sure it's like first 9 questions of your test is this map. Okay?
Yep.
You can do it. You can
know,
do it.
Your test is always has the map first, and it asks you where things are at. So you know you're going to have to know what was on the map.
9 questions.
And she's telling you exactly how many. So there you go. Okay, what caused Israel... What?
Oh, I just thought that was funny.
Oh. What was funny?
What you said. She's telling you how many there are.
She did.
Well, there's a big hint there.
That's okay.
Okay, what number are we on
I
now?
don't know.
Number 11. What caused Israel to split into 2 kingdoms? Well, I'll tell you. King Solomon did some silly things. He married like 200 women. And the very first commandment is to worship only one God and only Him, right? And then the second one was make unto yourself no graven images and all of this stuff. So it's right here under a kingdom divided. It really breaks it down into what exactly happened. So Solomon was being silly. He married a lot of women. He built a lot of temples to other
He
gods.
had tons of building projects going on.
Tons of them. And people were fed up with all the taxes and the enslavery. So, whenever he died, they went to his son, Rehoboam, and said, hey, decrease this tax burden. And so, guess what he did? He said, no, I'm going to increase the tax burden. And so, guess what? The people revolted. They threw, they were throwing punches. I don't know. It didn't really say if they were hitting each other.
It's kind of like a civil war, though,
But it
because
was- they
those
were-
2 kingdoms split.
Yeah.
One stayed with him, and the other kingdom left. So,
That's right. 2 kingdoms stayed, Judah and Benjamin, and they became Judah, named after the tribe of Judah, and 10, I said kingdoms, but I meant tribes.
Well,
10
tribes.
tribes became the northern kingdom, and they kept the name Israel, but they gave themselves the capital of Samaria. That's what they did. So I told my kids to try to remember it like this. The north had more, north and more, Ram, so they had more tribes, and the south was small. South and S start with the same letter. Okay. And Judah and Jerusalem start with the same letter, and that's how you can remember the capital of Judah was Jerusalem.
Southern, JJ.
JJ.
Okay, so that is on this sheet right here that she's talking about, the kingdom divided, because question number 11 says, what caused Israel to split into 2 kingdoms?
Yep.
The kingdom divided, split into 2. Okay, and number 12, she actually, Miss Anderson
I just told
actually
you that.
told you, said describe the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom and name their capitals. That is all on the back of the sheet, and she just told you what the capitals were.
Judah, Samaria.
So we're moving right on.
Yep.
13, who was King Solomon and what did he do? She actually just
Yeah.
told you about King Solomon because King Solomon was giving his people very high taxes, and they got tired of it. They couldn't pay, and if you back then couldn't pay your tax, you know what happened to you?
You had to go to slavery.
You were enslaved, and so they couldn't pay their tax. So they asked his son, "Please lower the taxes." Nope,
didn't do it.
not going to do it. Okay, so who was he? King Solomon was also the one that was considered the wise king. He was David's son. So David had Solomon. David was the one who built the city of Jerusalem. David also wanted to build the temple, but he died before the temple was built. So Solomon finished building the temple for his dad, King David, or completed it. He did. So he built the first temple. And he was the one that was known as the wise king.
Yep.
He wrote the Song of Solomon. He wrote Proverbs. He's the one that I told you the story about the lady who came to him. One of them had rolled over on their baby at night when they slept, and the baby was dead. And so they went to him, and one was saying, "That's my baby." The other was saying, "No, it's not." And he didn't know whose baby was what. So
he was like, "Let's just cut this baby in half."
Yeah. And one of them goes, "Okay, let's just cut it in half."
And then mommy, the real mommy, said, "No, she can have the baby as long as you leave it alive."
That's right. Just let it live, and she can have it. So King Solomon immediately knew right then who the real mother was.
Of course.
So that is King Solomon. What legacy did he leave? Oh my word, my class followed it. We went to the live view for 2 or 3 days of the temple.
Oh,
It was
I only showed you guys once. Sorry.
It was the wall of the second temple, but we went there. What legacy did he leave behind? That temple wall's still there. That's where the first and second temple were. So the temple to God that housed the Ark of the
Covenant.
Yep. All right, question 13, no, 14. We're on 14.
How was the northern kingdom destroyed, and who destroyed it? Okay, well, the northern kingdom we know is the 10 tribes. It was named Israel, and so the Assyrians come along. They were building their empire. They wanted those trade routes that were running through Israel, and so they went over there and they said, "Hey, listen, Israel, you pay us tribute. We're going to take you over." They refused, so Assyria took them over, and they carted a whole bunch of them out of there into Assyria, and they became the 10 lost tribes of Israel at that point.
Yep.
They
also brought some Assyrians into the land that they had conquered, and then those two different cultures of people mixed, and they formed a new culture.
The Samaritans.
Yep. All right. The Southern Kingdom. Well, here, Miss Anderson, I've got it up here. Just go ahead. The Northern Kingdom and the Southern Kingdom are both on this worksheet.
The Southern Kingdom lasted a lot longer than Samaria, but 150 years longer than Israel. So anyway, Babylon was starting to grow. Remember, I told you this was during the time of empire building shenanigans. Everybody wanted an empire.
Shenanigans.
Anyway, so they were building their empire, and they wanted those trade routes also, because remember, it was right there on the Mediterranean Sea. It linked them all the way over to Greece and to Rome, and ultimately the English Isles and all that stuff. And far east, we were starting to see the Silk Road form, and we'll get more into that later. But anyway, they wanted that land. So Nebuchadnezzar goes in there, he takes over and puts Zedekiah. He's like, "Hey, Zedekiah, you're going to rule things." But behind Nebuchadnezzar's back, Zedekiah was planning a revolt. When Nebuchadnezzar found out, he came in, took siege for 2 years on the city, and then eventually was able to come in, burn down the walls of Jerusalem, and he completely and utterly destroyed the temple and carted away all the goods that were inside. And so that's what happened.
Yep, he was the one that is who is responsible for destroying the first temple that Solomon built.
Yep.
So several of you asked that question. I told you that day in class. I'm sure Miss Anderson did as well, and so did Miss Watkins. So, all right, question. You just answered question number 16 too. Who was Nebuchadnezzar?
And what happened during? Yeah. All right. Boom.
Okay. Who was Cyrus the Great, and whom did he defeat? All right. Yep, keep going. I'll pull this back out again.
Cyrus the Great is the king of the Persian Empire, and he actually called himself the king of the universe, is what he named himself. But he was known to be a pretty fair guy, so he wanted everybody to go back home to their homelands and rebuild their temples, and the Jews were definitely one of them. So he made a decree, which is an unbreakable law, to send all the Jews back. And he said to Babylon, "Hey, you got to give all the Jews their goods back, so give them their gold." Miss Wills is trying to kill a bee that's in here flying around.
It's a stink bug.
It's a stink bug. Oh, don't kill a stink bug. It'll stink. Yes. Okay, anyway, so, this is just a normal day here.
It's not stinking yet, but it's gross.
So Cyrus the Great defeated the Babylonian king, the Chaldean king, Nebuchadnezzar, and he sent the Jews back to their homeland to rebuild the temple. They named it the Second Temple.
And that's the one that we did the live
Yeah.
virtual tour
To watch the
Which,
Wailing
you
Wall.
know what? I mentioned to my students today, it is really, really cool to me that the very thing that we're talking about in class, we were able to go to in a live view and watch.
Yeah, it's awesome.
When we would start in the morning, because they're 8 hours ahead of us. So when we would start in the morning, it would be afternoon there, and you could see the sun kind of over it, but the shadows beginning to set. And then as we go through our day, it gets dark and
Yeah.
the lights come on. And it is just so cool because when I was in school, Miss Anderson's a lot younger than me, so it probably didn't happen to her. But when I was in school, my teachers used to say, while I'm teaching, this is going on over there. And we'd think, yeah, that's really cool. You guys are to an advantage that we get to see it live. Mm-hmm. So when we were teaching that, and we were talking about the Second Temple, we actually saw a picture of it and what was happening at that very time during the day while we were sitting in our classroom learning about
You can Google it yourself from your
You
own computers.
can. It is just so cool.
Anytime you want to.
All right, I got the stink bug.
The next one says,
Killed,
what was
so-
the Ark of the Covenant and what was its significance? There's a worksheet on that.
All right,
And Miss Wills is digging it out.
I am.
Where is it? Oh, I bet it's, no.
Here it is. King Solomon, the Ark of the Covenant. Is this the one you're talking about?
No.
Well, there's this one.
Did we not do it?
I don't remember it, but I remember talking about it when we read this about King Solomon. And I
Okay.
know we talked about it a lot. And there was a video on our Active Inspire that we showed.
Yes.
Mhm.
And you've got one on your Ed puzzle.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
All right, so the Ark of the Covenant, what was its significance? All right, so there were specific directions as to how to build it that were given to Moses.
Yeah.
Remember, you could not touch the actual ark. The poles that went through were the only thing that you could touch.
And
once
only
it
the
was
Levites
built.
could carry it.
That's right. Priests of the Levite tribe.
Yeah.
So no one else was allowed to carry it. David built the city of Jerusalem and had the Ark of the Covenant moved to the city. And then when the temple was built, Solomon had the Ark of the Covenant placed in there. When the first temple was destroyed, that's where we lose track of the Ark of the Covenant. There's all kinds of different theories as to where it could be.
It's never been found.
But at that point is where we lose where it was. But if you remember, the Ark of the Covenant contained Moses' 10 Commandments.
the rod of Aaron and
Right.
manna from
And
the
manna
time
from
they lived in
heaven.
the wilderness.
Right. From when they were wandering in the wilderness for 40 years.
Wilderness.
Would you like to say your word again?
Wilderness.
Oh, I thought you were going to say smoked.
Oh. It smote the enemy
There.
sometimes. They would always take it to battle with them. It was
They
very
did.
important.
They took it
It
to battle.
actually resembled, or it was the embodiment of God's presence.
Yes, so they believed that when they took the Ark of the Covenant with them into battle, that they were actually taking the presence of God with them. And if you remember, in one of the videos we watched, we did have an army who took it.
The Philistines.
Yep. Do you remember what happened to them?
Well, they set it in a room next to their god called Dagon, and then the Dagon fell over. They went and set Dagon back up, and Dagon fell over again, and this time its head fell off and rolled across the room. And all the people broke out in boils all over their skin.
Ugh. Boils again.
Then they took it back, and they said, "We don't want this thing.
Well,
you guys keep
they
it."
also were plagued. They were also given a plague, and all of the soldiers died.
Yeah.
So, and then there's a story that we told you about one of the men that was walking beside the Ark of the Covenant, and it started to tip because one of the priests kind of like stumbled, and so I'm sure
They
it
were
was
carrying it
was
wrong.
It was natural, probably natural
Yeah.
human nature though. It's kind of like when
You
your
catch
cup
it.
starts to fall. If it's sitting here and it starts to fall, you
Yeah.
grab for it.
But he
So
died.
he reached up to steady it, and yeah, he died.
They were carrying it the wrong way.
I know.
It's like if you're jumping on the bed, you might fall off and break a leg.
Bet your mom has told you that.
Mm-hmm.
Along with clean your room.
If you don't clean your room, yeah.
All right,
So-
next one. 19. We're almost there. 19. After the captivity of the Chaldeans, who freed the Jews and allowed them to return to Judah. What?
It doesn't even look like a question. After the captivity of the okay.
Who freed the Jews and allowed them to return to Judah?
That should be easy. It's a one-word answer, actually, too. Cyrus,
The
King Cyrus, or Cyrus the Great. 3 words.
Do you remember what he created the first of? Well, the world's biggest at that time.
The biggest empire the world had known at that time.
Yep.
That's who he was.
Yep. Aha, there it is. I knew it was somewhere. I was trying to kill a stink bug with it. Right here, event 4. Talks about Cyrus the Great.
Yay, event 4.
Okay.
All right, and then
All right, last one.
the Jews returned to Judah after the Babylonian captivity. What did they do?
They rebuilt the temple.
And they named it a very complex name. The second temple.
The second temple. One of my students today pointed out that was very creative. The
Yeah.
first temple, then the second temple. I'm telling you, those creative juices were flowing, man.
Yeah.
They were. All right, so there are several videos that are on Edpuzzle that we had you watch. They were in our Active Inspire, but you can go to Edpuzzle and you can get them.
Yep.
You've got all the stuff that we went through in the notebook, and we just went through the order in another video, so all of this stuff is in your notebook. All the questions that are taken, that are on your test, you have the information for in your notebook.
Right
There's a
there.
couple of sections that Miss Anderson has developed them to look like your TCAP test. So you're going to be reading a primary source. We read a primary source in Mesopotamia, a couple of them actually, about Hammurabi's laws. You're going to be reading a couple of primary sources in this test as well.
Yep.
So,
We talked to you about these.
now I am giving my class, and I think Miss Anderson is as well. If you complete this, and by complete I mean front and back.
Back.
Yep, there's a back to it, and Miss Anderson has left you some places there. Miss Anderson, you want to tell them?
Look, I don't need you to get out the Webster's Dictionary and tell me 3 or 4 sentences. Just let me know you know what you're talking about. Make it short and sweet. I'm not asking you to stay up till midnight filling this out.
No.
Just know your stuff. That's all.
So, for example, have you got prophet on there?
Yeah.
So,
Speaks to God.
prophet, person who speaks for God. There you go. All right, so if you complete this front and back, I will be giving you some bonus points on your test.
I'm giving you bonus points on your test.
There you go. So you need to study because your test is going to be on Wednesday of this week. All right, so anything else you can think of to tell them, Miss Anderson? Oh, got to hit pause. Hang on.
So the only other thing I would tell you is go onto the website, onto mine. Miss Wills may have it on hers, and Miss Watkins I think has it on hers. But anyway, if you're on the website, find your teacher, and there are quiz codes. If you can't get it on hers, you can get it on mine. You can get it on. So anyway, codes are there. You can go on to Canvas and look at your bell ringers again if you need to do that, just to kind of review those. Those are available to you.
And also anybody, my class, Miss Anderson's class, Miss Watkins' class, it doesn't matter. You can go to my web pages too. It's got the quizzes codes on there, and underneath that there are some links to some Quizlet games.
Yeah.
So you can go to my web page as well. It doesn't matter if you're my student
we
or
all
not.
teach the same thing.
That's right. So you can go to my web page and you can get the quizzes codes. If they're different from hers, then you can use mine and hers.
Yeah.
They're probably the same, but if they're different, you can use mine and hers. But there are some Quizlet games there that you can play as well. So we've got lots of reviews up that you can be
right.
that you can be working on.
And tomorrow's Tuesday, and we're going to have the day of review tomorrow.
That's right.
All
Okay.
right, people.
All right. Good luck, guys.
Goodbye.
Bye. See you. Bye.